Hi, and welcome to Rise, Heal, and Grow. I'm Leah M. Hill. This podcast is a production of Apollo Sunrise Center, which is a health, wellness, and spiritual retreat center in Merrimack, Massachusetts. On this show, we shine the light on those who nurture wellness and inspire positive change. I have two guests with me here today. Melissa McLaughlin and Jess Barber are both here with me today to talk about the topic of women and sobriety. This is a deep topic, and you have both been involved in a group called the Sober Sisterhood of the North Shore. And I'd like to hear about this group. What is it, and how was it created?
Yeah, so this came about because when I first got sober, I knew one person who didn't drink alcohol. One person.
Oh my gosh.
So after talking with Melissa, we decided that we would come together and offer something a little different than what's typically out there, such as, AA. Mm-hmm. A lot of women do not relate to the term alcoholic. Many of us, such as myself, simply have a toxic relationship with alcohol.
That's really important because I agree. I think a lot of people might have what we call a toxic relationship, but not realizing it or putting it together in their head because they're saying, I'm not an alcoholic. There's that difference that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I grew up in a home where alcoholism ran rampant. So I grew up in AA meetings.
Oh.
And so being in that environment, I knew that wasn't the right fit for me right off the bat. And I think you said something similar. AA just didn't resonate.
Yes, AA didn't resonate. I went to a few meetings in the beginning of my recovery, and I just found that it didn't really support me in where I was. I needed to really do some deep healing energetically, and work with my nervous system, realizing how much in fight or flight I was from trauma that led to my alcoholism. Right. So in order to get myself out of that spiral with the alcohol, I needed to heal my body.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so that's a very different approach, yes, than the traditional approach of going to the meetings, which I know have helped many, many people
right.
Over the years. But it sounds like you both felt like it was a good start, but not what you needed personally. Is that right?
Right. And I feel like, a lot of the time, we don't know how to live in a world without alcohol. So it's very much work hard, play hard culture, especially when you're working in corporate America and things like that.
Right.
Even in my personal life, I found that I was running into things like mommy's wine night, and you'd get together with other parents and their kids, and there was always alcohol. So I didn't know how to live in a world where alcohol wasn't a part of it. Yeah. And so this group for me really came about because I thought it would be somewhere where women like me could come and say, you know what, I've struggled and alcohol has really impacted my life, but I don't know how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And if you're newly sober, it's kind of like, how do I move forward now? What do I do? How do I, show up in my life without the alcohol?
Right. Like, how do you go to a party or, go to an event or something? What do? You don't want to just shelter yourself and, not be around the people that you want to be around with and not experience things. But you're right, it is everywhere in our culture.
Yeah.
So the group that you formed is not just for recovering alcoholics, right? It's for anybody who's, can you explain, like sober curious, like who that's for?
Yeah, it's sober curious women who are just, kind of coming to the realization that there's no place for alcohol in their life anymore. Or, wondering, do I really need this? Is this something I want to continue to accept into my world? What do you?
It's really about that. Yeah. It's really about, do I still want to live in this version of myself that honestly requires alcohol to be a part of my life? So in newly sober, it can be a little difficult at first. So sober curious, I know that I was sober curious for a few years before I completely went. And it took me a full year to stay sober. I had a few times that I had fallen off for different reasons, different things came up in life, and that was the way that I knew how to cope. So early on, you might not have a support system, but it's about seeking that support. And that's what this group really was about too, is to be able to have a collective of those that were sober in the North Shore, holistically and wellness.
Yeah, that's so powerful that you have created this for people that, like, that's like the missing piece for so many women out there that would, you know, maybe they tried that, what is it called, the dry January or something, maybe they tried that, but like you said, they fall back, because as soon as, it's like you start off with all the best intentions, but then life happens and then you're back into the old patterns again.
Yeah.
But to be able to connect with other women who have been through it and experienced it and are still living it every single day, right? It's something you don't just, you know, turn off, right? It's still something you have to deal with every single day.
Right, and there's no cookie cutter approach, right? It's not like a one size fits all experience. So, you know, you're gonna come to this gathering and be able to sit in around like-minded women that have gone through different things, followed different paths, you know, been sober, been not sober, and it just really puts a like a realness to it all. It's not like, no, this is how we do it. These are the steps. This is how you follow things. It's like, how does it work for you? Because this is what worked for me, and what worked for me may not work for you.
Yeah.
So it's giving you options. It's giving you guidance. It's opening your mind to new possibilities.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I know both of you had talked about in the past about how you had this like self-identity with alcohol that was like intertwined, like your identity of who you were included alcohol before.
Yeah.
And how does that work? How do you untangle that?
Yeah, that's a process. That is an ongoing process. I mean, for me, it was like I had no idea who I was. Alcohol made me think I was funnier, smarter,
Wow.
so much more loved. I mean, it created such a false narrative around who I was that when I stopped, it was like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know how to be. I didn't even know how to like communicate with my husband anymore, because that was something we always did together. You know, go have a drink, go sit at the bar. That was just our lifestyle. So when that stopped, I had to learn how to be in social situations, and that was terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But for you.
Same.
Yeah.
Social situations, I've more so recently got comfortable with being sober in. Early recovery, they were really hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. Just to be able to be social, go out to music, which I love. And I'm not fully sober. I do use medicinally cannabis and psilocybin. But I would go out to music and I would need to eat an edible before I went out, because I was still so uncomfortable without the alcohol, because it got so intertwined. Like that was the way to do things. That's how I grew up, you know. Every function turned into everyday functional alcoholism.
Like you couldn't get through your day without.
I would end most of my days in the week with blackout drinking.
Wow.
And it just wasn't the way anymore. So it was a continuous practice and journey to come back home to myself and really find out who I am in this version of me without the alcohol.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so interesting, because I even think about, you know, the experiences I've had, like college or something, when I drank too much and I said things that hurt people. I did things that hurt people. And then I was like, oh, well, that was the alcohol talking. It was like an excuse for me, but I knew it wasn't me. Like I would never say things, some of the things that I said or did, I wouldn't do, you know, if I was, you know, when I'm sober and everything. And I felt that too. It's like that it felt like whenever I had those experiences, I wasn't really me.
Yeah, I mean, alcohol, it robs you of, you know, so much. I mean, you talk about that. I mean, I didn't have an off switch, so that was my biggest problem. I envied the people that could go out and have a drink or two.
Yeah.
I was always somebody who just couldn't stop. You know, I wanted to continue the party, and I suffered. And it took me so long to be like, I don't want this anymore. I wanted better life for myself. And most importantly, you know, I didn't want my children to see me like that.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, I had a couple situations where I said, all right, I'm done. This is it. I can't do it anymore. And And that was hard. I wrote my journal. My first journal entry of deciding to stop was, I want to be somebody who says, I do not drink alcohol. And I remember the first time I said that, I was at a work function, and somebody came out. I was like 2 weeks out, and somebody came up and offered me a drink, and I said, no, I don't drink. And it felt so false because it was so new.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving there being like, I can't believe I said that. Did I just lie? I think I lied. And then, as time went on, I can say that now. I don't drink, and it's okay. And I don't have any apology for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful for the people who can't see getting to that point
Right.
right now.
We also need to know that we don't need to explain ourselves either.
Yeah.
Because people will look at you funny, sideways even, try to, like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you drink?
Right.
And it's like, I don't need it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
comfortable
why? They want to know
now.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I totally get that. So,
Yeah.
and I know, some people say that they started drinking or they took on drinking because they experienced some trauma in their lives, right? They experienced some trauma, and the alcohol was there because it's easy, convenient, makes you feel good for a little while maybe, or that they learned it from, like you mentioned, your family, that they learned this is how we deal with stress, we drink. So for the support that you give through the group, through the Sober Sisterhood, how can you help, even specifically for women, how can this help to, like, not just heal the trauma, but heal that relationship between the trigger of trauma going to the alcohol?
Well, I think it's just shedding light on the fact that you're more than the booze. There's so much more to you. It's like getting back in touch with the things that you once loved that maybe you've put aside. Whether it's tapping into your creativity.
Yeah, good point.
Maybe it's allowing your
Yeah.
intuition to come in a way that it couldn't before. I know that was my experience. I was unable to connect because I was too busy clouding my mind. And so, I just feel like there's opportunity here to explore, to become open, and to fall back in love with your life. Yeah.
It's a safe space where you can show up authentically as you.
Yeah.
Very open-hearted environment, especially at Apollo Sunrise Center. The energy there is very supportive of this type of healing that we need to do if we choose the sober path for ourselves.
Yeah, really sounds like finding the safe space, to be able to do that. So, let's talk about the actual group itself. So you meet in person and virtually. How does that work?
So right now, we've kind of been on a pause for the summer. We had a couple sessions prior, but we're coming back on September 6th, 11 to 12 on Saturday mornings. And it's really just it's very relaxed, it's really cozy environment. You can share your story, what you're going through, or you can just listen. Because there's a lot of power in that, listening to other people's stories and what they're going through. There's no judgment, there's no pressure. And it's just, if you want advice, there will be people there to give it. Yeah.
It's important. And I think, like we were saying, it's important to know that the door is open for anyone. It's not just for recovery. Any woman who says, I just want to try this, or I don't know if I have a toxic relationship with alcohol, but I'm, good during the week, but then the weekends I'm, knocked out, like I said, or over drinking too much.
Right. That's so important, because I know for me, there was a lot of periods of time where I was like, I'm going to moderate. I'm only going to have 2. I'm only going to have 3. And I would fail and I would fail and I would fail. And that just puts you in this dark place, in this hole. And you're like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get a grip? Until you get to a point where you're like, you know what? I don't need this anymore. And so it's wonderful if, women can get together and have these conversations, and you can realize I'm not alone.
Yeah, that's really important, especially if you're out in the community or out with other people, and everybody else can have 1 drink and be done, or 2 drinks and be done. But when you couldn't, or you wanted to, but you just felt like you couldn't, it does, I can imagine that it makes you feel like there's something to you.
Yeah, and that's where that negative self-talk comes in.
Then negative self-talk, and knowing that if you can't stop after 1 or 2, because I was the same way, I had no off switch, and I'd love 2 drinks at a time. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's just something within you, whether it's biological, passed down through genes, because that is a thing.
It could be, yes.
You know, or just, who knows, it could be an energetic thing that, you know, you are trying to suppress and not feel. So that's why you continue, but there's nothing wrong with you. You know, if acknowledging that you might have a problem is the first step, the next step is, who's your support system?
And these groups are so powerful, because not only are you going to come and have the support of other women, but you're going to learn practical tools to take with you, to go home with, that you can use when the stress is overwhelming.
Oh, that's important, right?
You know,
right.
so we're not just going to say, you know what, you're not drinking, see you later. It's like, okay, maybe we teach you some breathing exercises. Maybe we do some subconscious programming, you know, or some rewiring, or something that just, when you leave, you're like, okay, I'm going to use this week and see if it gets me through that hump where everyone's having a drink and I'm white knuckling it.
Yeah,
You know?
at least try it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, to give people actual practical tools that they can use right away.
Yeah, and we didn't want to leave it just at the group. So we have a Facebook group where people can comment, have conversation, get updates. And we're also using Telegram, where you can do little audio clips. So, you know, you're having a bad day and it's like, you know what, I have to go to my sister's cousin's wedding and I have a really hard time with, you know, the family on that side. And so I'm scared. I'm not going to drink. So, you know, pop on there, leave us a message, and then people can chime in and give you support and say, you know, we're here for you. So it's in your pocket.
Right. So this is a private Facebook group. And how would they find that?
You can find it through Apollo Sunrise. So if you go directly to Apollo Sunrise's Facebook group, Facebook, there is a group attached to it. And then Telegram is something that I would help you get set up with when you come to the live group.
Okay.
Make sure that you're connected and we can all communicate.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And that's such a great, it's an accessible way for people to interact at a level that's comfortable for them in the moment, right? Yeah. So might be someone who, what do we call it, lurkers, you know, someone who's like, you know, online and just kind of looking at it and going, I don't know what to do. But if there was someone who was experiencing that, who was like, you know, lurking around on social media and unsure and really thinking about the dramatic effects that might come from making such a lifestyle change, right? Am I going to lose my relationships? Am I going to lose my friendships? Am I going to, you know, what's going to change? And they're really, and that's like preventing them from speaking or actually taking the next step. What would you want them to know? Maybe I'll ask both of you. What would you want that woman to know who's out there?
You're not alone. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to do it alone. You know, just show up. That's what I would recommend. Just show up. Just try it once. Yeah. Meet us, meet all of the women that come, and feel it out and see how you feel, because, you know, when you're in a place where you're suffering, you know, it feels really lonely. And when you get around women who get it, it's really uplifting. It's really motivating. It's really inspiring. And it makes you feel as though you can continue forward on this path.
Great.
Yeah.
Not so isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
exactly.
great.
And really just understanding that that how people respond to your choices are not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. And if you are choosing a healthier path for yourself, that is for you to understand for yourself, your family unit, whatever it is. You don't have to feel like you need to explain away. Your dynamics and your relationships will most likely shift, but that's part of healing. So no expectations, because that is just a weight that we don't need to really take on when we start this journey. Just being able to lean into and trust what your choice is with the substance.
Right. I think that's so important for people to know that this is out there. There's this group. You don't have to commit to anything. You can just show up and, you know, come as you are and start with wherever you are in the moment. And that's really important for giving people a starting point on the journey, which is a long journey for both of you. You know, taking that it took years and years to get to that journey.
Yeah, I always, sorry to interrupt, I always call it an unraveling, right? There's this unraveling process when you decide to step away from drinking. It's layers. it takes a while, and I'm still figuring out things that are triggering to me. I still have moments where I'm like, I really want to have that margarita because it looks so good and it's a beautiful day and everyone's having drinks, and why can't I just be someone who can have that margarita? But I step back and say, no, it's not worth it. I've done so much work to get here. So it's not, healing isn't a straight line.
Yeah, perfect way to say it. So looking at the future of the Sober Sisterhood of the North Shore, do you have any vision or where you would like this to go in the future? What are you thinking?
Melissa and I have talked about this. So we want a big group of women.
Okay.
We want a lot of women to come together and have retreats and workshops and things kind of branch off of this one meeting that we're having, this one gathering that we're having. So where they can come and learn different modalities, experience different modalities, different tools, and really just create this really large community.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's the goal.
Anything else you'd like to say before we?
No, I mean, just be, just know that you're worth it. Know that you're worth it. Your life is worth it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That was perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us today, both whether you're watching or listening. And thank you both to Jess Barber and Melissa McLaughlin for joining me to talk about this very important topic of women and sobriety and how they have created something, both from their own personal needs, come together and created something that might be very, very helpful for a lot of women. And we hope that it will be too. So please join us again soon on another episode of Rise, Heal, and Grow with Leah M. Hill.